I remember for years my buddy was telling me to use Blender, and I just was always like, yeah, okay. And he was trying to convince me at all times, and then eventually, like, I just started using it, and I'm like, "Ah, I'm such a fool." Um, Wait, hold on. How do I don't remember. Yeah, isn't it Control Tab? Yeah. Okay. Uh, I just never used it because I don't know. I just never saw the value, and then yeah, then I started seeing the value, and it just happened like a year and a half ago, maybe, and now I've been using it ever since, and I just don't see the use of any other 3D platform now. So
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
so let's talk about this though. Let's talk about what it means to, you know, get better at someone's style or learning that style. And it's as you would say, like you know, his forms, his line art, whatever. Um, yeah, that's what you would do. You would just
Okay.
you would just look at their lines and try to draw it. Okay,
Yeah.
as simple as that may sound. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I think this is important to kind of recognize is because I think sometimes people really, again, they're trying to look for something really secret, like there's some sort of secret method that will really get you there faster. But the best way is just to just analyze, study, and then replicate, right? And then
Yeah.
whatever you don't understand, try to understand it. One thing that I will say that people don't do enough whenever when they're trying to what you call it, like study somebody's stuff, like they'll do what I said, like just replicate and draw whatever, right? But then whenever they try to actually uh you know sorry, I'm like focus on what I'm doing here. Yeah, when they try to actually like understand what they've done, they'll just kind of like absent-minded do it, like they won't really try to just really break down what they've done. And that's that's true for most things outside of just style, right? Like I think that when I would practice someone's style, I would not only try to replicate it. Let's say line art, for instance, is a good one,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then I would just like see what it is that I did wrong by like tracing their artwork, you know, and be
Yeah.
like, what is it that I didn't do that? Because I feel like I'm missing something. So I'll trace their artwork and see what their line art feels like to live in their shoes just a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But people don't trace because they're like tracing is bad. But it's like when you're trying to learn, there's nothing outside of like putting their family as hostage unless they teach you something. Yeah, nothing's off the table. You can do whatever you need to, copy paste, uh, color pick, trace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try to understand. You know, don't try to like just be
Really
afraid.
dissect how they do it.
Yeah, really dissect it. Oh, that's weird. It's always weird when that happens. Um, you know, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Oh, I shouldn't do that. That'll be dangerous. Okay, this will be pretty fun. Drawing from one perspective. You know those like illustrations,
What kind of illustrations?
the ones where you can see the whole image from one vantage point, but then once you've turned, like your whole world falls apart. Watch, you'll see.
No, I don't know those.
What?
I've seen like Marco Bucci work in Blender. Is it that kind of drawing or?
No, his is like real stuff. I'm talking about like this. See how like
Oh
when I
yeah,
change the perspective, it's like falls apart.
yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, in like museums and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now you get it. Now you're. It's hard to do it every time I change perspectives. I wonder if I can do something cool. Like every time you change a perspective, it's like a different type of drawing. But then I think it'll ruin the other drawing. Anyway, you know what's cool too is like Blender has like yeah, because if I changed angle, oh that's pretty rad though. That's still pretty cool. Um, like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm trying to expand my abilities. You know, trying to get into that fine art space, dude. Trying to be a fine artist for once in my life. I always thought fine art was a little bit of a funny thing, but until my friend explained it to me a long time ago. Like you know that banana duct tape thing that I was talking about earlier. Actually, before I get into that, let me just say this about your studying question too. Before I move on
Mhm.
to tangent, yeah, the goal of studying a style is to understand like how they think, and so you just got to just try it, you know, and
Yeah.
just really emulate their style. And one thing that people tend not to try out too is like by looking at who influences them, you
Yeah.
know.
So
And
I've been studying him for about a month now, really steadily, and
cool,
also trying to get to know his influences like Paul Bonner and some other artists that I found that uh, he works from.
totally, yeah. Just study them, man, and then that's part of it. But one last thing that I tend to tell people too is like, don't get too stuck on studying that one artist because then you
Yeah.
will just be a copycat.
Yeah.
And the problem with being a copycat is that artist already exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if people want to go to the source, they'll just go to the source. Unless
Mhm.
they can't afford them, then you're in luck. You know, which does happen. Just don't think that doesn't happen. I remember my friend was telling me, she was asking me, he's like, hey, you know, do you know anybody who paints like Craig Mullins? And I was like, yeah, Craig Mullins. And she's like, no, like we can't afford him. That's why I'm asking, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what? Like, how much is he asking for? She's like, oh, it's like $20,000 a painting.
Damn.
And apparently he's ahead of our time because now people are making that much money from their paintings. He's like, yeah, you idiots.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have value. Stop acting like you don't. And I'm like, oh, he was always right. We were always
Mm.
underpricing ourselves. And um, that's rad. This is a cool thing that you can do. Grease pencil. What's another angle? I think it's really like you can do front side down and then just take the. Yeah, I think if I take like a quadrant, I should try that next time. Anyway, um, yeah. So I'm gonna finish my tangent I started earlier and then take on another question. Ricardo, please ask your question too. Like, it's hard for me to read the things after I finish my little tangent. So the tangent is that he was telling me how like you know fine artists, the ones that do like modern art kind of stuff, like the banana and the duct tape. He was telling me that like uh, uh, very wealthy individuals, what they tend to do is actually buy art like that, and they put their money into the art, And then what they will do is try to like platform the artist to become more popular and find more value. And then when that artist becomes incredibly popular or famous, whatever, that art will have intrinsic value because of the clout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A good example of this is not so much art, but it's more like idea of like value, is that the guy who sold Minecraft, Notch, for like $2.5 billion, which is crazy.
Yeah.
He ended up buying Beyonce and Jay-Z's old home, I think it was, right?
Damn.
For like
Yeah.
$90 million, which again is just pennies, dude. If you have billions of dollars in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, why is he spending his money on stupid stuff like that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the flaw that that's kind of the flaw of thinking. If you don't realize what they're doing there, like someone like him is doing, he's potentially investing in something that's going to be worth way more. Because originally, I think it was like Elvis Presley's home, or it was like some other important
Famous
celebrity
person.
figure, and they bought it
Yeah.
for cheaper than 90, and then they ended up selling it for more to someone like Notch. So if he was to sell it again, the creator of one of the most popular video games known to man, right?
Yeah.
Home, which was also owned once by the most popular musicians known to man, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
It
that's
really
it's
ups the value.
yeah. I would be surprised if he could get less than, if he sells it less than $250 million at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just the what it is, especially if these people die, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If something really tragic was to happen to any which one of these people, you know,
Yeah.
um, it becomes a tremendous value, you know, and so to me, it's like that's like clearly like the thing, you know, that I think uh, some of this NFT stuff can have too, right? This is why I was talking about bringing value to myself, not
Yeah.
just to sell and make art. Like I've always been doing that. I try to make money from my art only because it's a circumstance of the world that we live in.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll just be like, you know, um,
Chilling and making art.
yeah, just making art for the sake of it. Like I am
Yeah.
rooting for Skynet to win, you know, and become our, not our overlords, but our glorified babysitters. You know, that they just take care of us. You know what I mean?
We don't have to
Uh,
work anymore.
yeah, so we don't have to work anymore. We can just do whatever the fuck we want. Um, and I like if I told myself if I become a multi-millionaire artist because of this NFT stuff, which is a thing that could happen, I'll probably will just start to just make my own stuff like I've always wanted, and probably host free classes um, moving forward. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
go to the system I've always wanted, which was a more merit-based system. I probably wouldn't teach like 7 hour long classes like I'm doing now,
Yeah.
but like a
Exactly.
few hours, and it's just my time and it's free. You know,
Yeah.
like, and I will do paint overs and I will do critiques because I normally don't do that. It's reserved for classes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I don't have any incentive not to, and that's what I really enjoy. I love doing it. I really like helping people out. I just had to find a way to make money from it to justify the means. Otherwise,
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
yeah, I think most people do. That's why I don't think it's a problem.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, Ricardo.
Okay. Yes. About the topic about the banana tape with the duct tape. Andy Warhol said people don't buy art for the art anymore, but for who made it. And that's the NFT things, I think. You don't buy it for the actual piece usually, but because of who made it.
Yeah, it's a great segue because you had a question.
Yeah, I asked. Well, I do both illustration and concept art. I like them both, especially Magic the Gathering illustration styles, and also League of Legends, cool and insane, hyper detailed splash arts.
Uh huh.
But
Yeah,
I also like creating my own characters, especially. So I'm asking you
sure.
about the portfolio organization. Will you separate them? or will you prefer to put all of them together, maybe in a specific
Yeah,
order?
I think you should categorize them because they are a different skill. I think if it's on ArtStation, you can just put them all together. It's fine, but you
Okay.
should have a category on the top, and you should definitely tag them as such as you post them. Let's say on like ArtStation.
Hmm.
If you have Instagram, again, same thing. Just post whatever on all stuff, but you just need a way for people to say, if I search illustration, I find your stuff. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
I don't find your concept stuff. I find your illustrations. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But then if I go to your site, I see that you have concepts and illustrations. Then cool. Um,
Hmm.
but again, I'm always big fan of just staying focused, right, rather than
Hmm.
building a multitude of stuff. And you mentioned Riot and their splash screens. Like, just to be clear, their illustrators do not do multitudes of stuff.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've heard many stories of illustrators and what have you, right?
Hmm.
Basically, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, like they go from illustration to concept.
Hmm.
Okay, and those illustrations and concepts, you know what I mean? Like going from illustration to concept is really challenging for them.
Hmm.
Okay, so just keep that in mind when um, what was I going to say? Yeah, just keep that in mind whenever you are doing this because I think a lot of times people feel, oh, I thought that would be simple. I was a fool. I can only dream. Um, yeah, sometimes people feel like they can jump from one thing to the other, and it's not that easy. You know, it really
Hmm.
is like very challenging to do one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
For
once
example,
you've
sorry.
yeah, once you've really understand this, you know, I think that there's a lot more respect for it. But like, I'm not trying to even say that you don't understand that. I'm just saying
Hmm.
that to answer your question directly about like how should you organize it? That's how you should organize it, right?
Hmm.
You should organize it in a way that basically helps you, you know, separate your portfolio so people know how to find it.
Hmm.
Otherwise it'll be a really challenging thing to do for like a recruiter if they have to like sort through all your stuff. But like I only do concepts, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And only recently have been doing more illustration. And
For
I categorize it as such.
okay. For example, it depends because I met tons of artists like Ben Mauro also and Carl Ortiz, for example. She's amazing. She does
Uh
this
huh.
crazy cool concept for the Marvel movies, but she also does some crazy cool illustration for the Magic the Gathering. But maybe
Oh
because
yeah.
her concepts are so highly rendered and highly realistic that looks like an illustration of a character
Well, she
usually.
originally started off as a illustrator. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think she really kind of worked her way up to that. And it's not to say that it's a huge leap. Okay, I don't want you to get that confused either. Like, I don't want you to assume that it's uh like if you do character illustrations and character like doing character concepts is like incredibly impossible. No, it's
Hmm.
pretty similar. You know, it's just
Hmm.
not immediately like you just can't immediately do it. You know what I mean? You have to
Hmm.
like train in that as well. But I like to think of it as like in soccer, you have the goalie and then you have the forward.
Hmm.
They both play soccer, you know,
Hmm.
but just because you're really good at being a forward doesn't mean that you can be a goalie. And just because you're a really good goalie doesn't mean you could be a forward. But you could train to be a good forward and you could train to be a good goalie, and it would be less of a gap from someone starting from zero. Okay.
Hmm.
Because you would be like, at least, like, I think a goalie could probably kick the ball and play good soccer, just not as good as their forward, and vice
Hmm.
versa. But if they were to train, maybe they could. And it would not be as big of a leap, but it would still be like a lot of effort. Same thing with like marathon runner, like a long distance runner versus a short distance sprinter. Like they're both good at running, but just because a sprinter can sprint in under 10 seconds doesn't mean they can run a mile under 4 minutes. They could probably run like a 4-minute mile, 4-minute 30-second mile, which is still fucking fast. But compared to the Olympic mile runners, they're running like 3 minutes 30 seconds. You know what I mean? They're like a whole minute faster. But they're like that sprinter is better than every regular person out there who's tried to run a mile, potentially. And then vice versa, I'm sure like long distance runners can do pretty good sprints, but they might not break under 10 seconds.
Obviously. You gotta pick what your best. I don't know how to say it because
just pick
I
one
can
lane
explain.
for now, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'm getting
exactly. I want to be the best, for example, 3-point shooter, but you can be the best dunker, for example, and you're playing basketball. Because
yeah,
if you train to shoot or if you train to jump, because jumping is not so easy as people think, it's just talent. No, it's crafted like everything.
yeah. You just gotta pick a thing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And then you can switch over to the other thing later. Absolutely. Any other questions? Take one last question. This does work, by the way. I think I just didn't keyframe it before.
About this thing, have you ever tried to draw with the VR technique?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Insanely cool.
I love VR.
I got a question about NFT.
NFT? Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
So I looked it up, and it looks like there's some art out there that's already been floating around before NFT, and possibly including yours as well.
Oh no.
Right. So what I mean is, if there is artwork that is already out there on Google, for example, like you Google it and then the name and then something like that artwork pops up and then it's on NFT. But NFT inherently is like it means like it's a unique item, right?
Yeah.
Like each token. So at that point, is it because the artist's name is what's being collected rather than the art itself, even though like somebody would have a full access to the high resolution version of this on ArtStation, for example?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's the I don't think I need to do that. It's there's a great example, a great metaphor somebody brought up where the Mona Lisa, there's only one original Mona Lisa that was done by Leonardo da Vinci, but you can buy like high print versions of it. You can even buy replicas. Like there are people, like one of my life drawing instructors would do replicas of Sargent paintings, and they are indistinguishable to the original. Okay. But technically speaking, there is only one Mona Lisa, right? So what NFT does is basically say, I, Anthony Jones, I'm saying that this specific NFT, right, is minted by me. Like I literally said this specific URL, this specific non-fungible token has been minted by me personally, right? This is not just a JPEG that I uploaded to ArtStation or Instagram. I'm saying that this is an official piece of artwork of mine. If there was a digital version of a physical copy, it's like if I printed only one version of it, I personally signed it, right? And I embroidered it or whatever the hell I did to it to say that it's mine. And I'm only making one. I'm never printing any more than these, right? It's even, I would say, even more valuable than that potentially, which is crazy to think because it's digital.
How would one that doesn't have like because I've been pretty much in the cave for many years, with working at studios and things like that. I never really made much effort to put myself out there because I've been just getting jobs and and so I don't have that. But then I think that like artwork wise, I mean, maybe I have a couple of pieces that I could put up there, but I don't have a following, right? And I'm not saying that that's what I'm going to do now. That's what I want to do, but well, actually, I do think I want to do it, but because I actually have this, a friend of mine actually reached out to me a couple of weeks ago about NFTs, and I've been researching some of it. But then I was noticing that, like, because I don't have a following, maybe it's the artwork itself that would maybe grab the eye, including,
Sure.
some of us here who have like really awesome character concept that you gave feedback on,
Yeah.
so, that could be potentially out there as well. Now, is it still possible to kind of,
Anything's possible. But remember how I talked earlier about quantifiable like strategies, not hoping like rolling the dice, because you're going to be sorely disappointed, if you have that strategy, right? So for me, I am not looking at it as, all right, I post this artwork, and because I believe it has value, people should buy it, right? Because that perspective is dangerous because you're putting too much of your self-worth into the conclusion. Does that make sense?
of course.
My self-worth is measured by people like yourself, my friends, and more importantly, my family, right? Which I think most of us would agree to. But yet people don't practice this. Does that make sense? Like I think fundamentally agree with what I'm getting at, but then they don't practice it. They'll share their work online, gets like 5 likes. When they see someone else's work, which they believe, not to be insulting, but they believe is inferior to their work, getting hundreds of likes, right? And now it's like, fuck that. This is like a joke. Where I'm like, all right, I got 5 likes. To get to 100, I need to post this, 25 more times, or like, 20 times, to get those 100 likes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking about like, why did I get those 100? I'm like, all right, I guess I just have to post more.
Yeah, at that point, like, you have to. I've learned, like, thankfully, with the career that I've had, like, I've learned how to kind of detach a little bit from my ego, right, and not be
Yes, absolutely.
expecting that result.
Like I said, because some people, it's just like very deserve it. Like when I look at people making millions, I'm like, this guy deserved it. He'd literally been making artwork every day for like 13 years. He's inspired countless amounts of people, right? I think that every penny he's made from this is well deserved and well earned. You know, James Jean, same thing. I felt the same way about this person. Ralph Grassetti, I think is undercut. I think he should have got paid way more, right? Like I'm just like, in my personal opinion, my subjective opinion, I think some of these people should have got paid more or less. That is my opinion. It is subjective, and that's all it's going to be, right? If you were to ask me my opinion, that's what my opinion would be. But then outside of that, you're asking me like advice on pragmatism, right? Like how would I go about this? And I'm saying you just keep doing it until one thing happens or another, right? So my strategy is multifaceted. It's always has been. I remember when I was starting out, people were saying, it's really hard to get in this industry, right? And I said, okay, but how do you do it? Like, what's the strategy? And they're like, oh, dude, trust me, it's really hard. You should just do 3D. And I was like, but that's not what I asked. I respect the challenge. I'm just asking, how do I circumvent, or not circumvent, how do I proceed accepting the challenge, And people will just say, it's just too challenging. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just do what I know works, which is just keep throwing stuff at it, right? Until something sticks. Does that make sense? And so I did that originally with my portfolio. I tried a bunch of different things, but then eventually I chose character design. So it's like, I need to stay focused so I can get good at one thing. And that worked because I was able to just put all of my effort into that thing, got really good at that thing, and then it paid itself out in terms of a career. In terms of marketing, I didn't even think about this when I was doing it. I was just doing it as a product of practicing because I was focused on getting better. And so I was getting better, and then I was trying to get as much feedback from my work as possible. So I'd share it on blogs, Tumblr, originally when those places used to be popping, and get feedback. Then I use Facebook, right? And I would get what I call positive feedback because most people don't say negative things about your work on these platforms, but I can see some works will do better than others. Does that make sense? And I would just pay attention to why, or I'll try to understand why. And then I'll try to see if I can replicate it because that's quantifiable, you know? And then ultimately what ended up happening as a consequence of me posting literally every other day to every day for years, I got a following. Does that make sense? And I was like, wait a minute. Oh, so the very thing that helped me get better is the same way to get an audience? Okay, well, I guess I got to just do that, you know? And there's a very clear correlation to that. And I just became more and more privy to it the more and more I started doing it. And then became more and more of a believer of it the more and more I saw it being true. Does that make sense? And so for me, the NFT, whether I was successful or not, like in an alternate universe, you know, in a different multiverse version of AJ, that was not doing as good on the NFTs, I'm sure that version of AJ, if he still had the same personality as I do, would have kept on making artwork, you know?
Absolutely.
Until it was popular, right? I wouldn't have stopped because I see like all these my friends making all this money. I'd be like, wait a minute, I can make income from my own personal work too. Yeah, fucking, I'm going, dude. And it happened to be that it is working out, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna keep going until it, like literally, I don't see the value in it in terms of my time investment, right?
Yeah.
And then move on to the next thing. But it will always service another thing. It seems like, you know, because if I'm drawing every day and I'm trying to expand my skills, because look what I've done right now. Like I'm trying to be more creative artistically, right? This may translate to being a better tool for concept art later for me, you know, that I would have never done if I didn't explore this new avenue.
Yeah.
You know, like I would have never challenged myself like this because I'm like trying to be more creative because I think that's what really does well, you know? And I'm like, this is kind of cool just in general, regardless of whether this sells, you know? I've gained something from this, irregardless of the ultimate conclusion of this, or the result of what this is supposed to get from me, right? Whether I put online and people are like, oh, shoot, that's cool, you know? And now I've gotten more followers, or oh, shoot, that's cool. Now
Yeah.
I have an inspired tutorial, right? Oh, shoot, that's cool. I'm going to give this guy money literally for just this piece of artwork, right? I'm not going to put this up. I'm just trying to give you guys examples, right? I'm trying to learn.
And I've actually gave my, I'm a concept artist right now at a studio, and I gave him a 3 weeks notice. And I'm going to take pretty much an indefinite sabbatical to, because everything I make, like, and I think I produce a decent volume of work, but I've actually noticed like my brain started turning into concrete when I'm like doing some things that I thought I wanted to do at the start of my career. But after doing it for enough, like I realized that it's time to move on and I want to try something else. And it's funny how a lot of that ended up me going backwards to like deconstruct things like the process. And because I realized like how much I actually still have yet to learn and how much I don't know. And so now I'm hoping that, in a month or so, whenever I catch my breather and, get my health back in check, I want to start doing that personal artwork and doing that journey and actually keep the stuff that I have and not have it be in the folder under an NDA, and then whatever goes from there, it's fine. But but I have to, that ego part, I have to basically be comfortable with my peers who do make money at this point, right? Because I'm going to be eating ramen, like I'm ready. And so, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I gotta
It's
roll
okay.
out, and I'm hoping the best for you guys in terms of that. But I will also say there's no reason to go full tilt either. Okay, like I'm not quitting any of my day jobs to explore this stuff. I'm just trying to be productive whenever I can. But I know people who have done that and done well, but I also have known people who've done that and had to come back. So just be careful about that.
Oh yeah, there's a chance that I'll come back, but after I give this a try.
All right, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Great work so far. You guys are awesome. Keep up the momentum. Cheers, everyone.
Have a nice day, guys. And girls.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.